God bless you. We're glad for another Growing in Grace podcast. And today we have a special guest with us, Nichelle Lemons. And today we're going to be talking about mental health, mental wellness. And one of the things I like to think about in as we grow and develop is that God really wants us to be well all the way around. And so sometimes we talk about saving your soul, but we have a body and a spirit, so soul, body, and spirit. And I noticed that in third epistle of John, about the second verse, he writes, "Beloved, I wished above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prosper." And you kind of work in the mental health field, and I just ask you this general question about how big of a percentage of people you think have some type of mental health challenge. I'm not talking about very high, the worst case scenarios. I'm talking about just have a touch of some mental health issues that they perhaps need some help with. About how much of the population would you guess at?
I think I would have to say that at some point in everyone's life, most of us have some type of mental health challenge, whether it's a diagnosis or reach the level of a diagnosis or having one. I wouldn't think that percentage would be so high, but I think over the course of our lives, most of us have some type of challenge that affects our mental health being at its maximum potential.
I agree. I believe that everybody has mental health issues that, if left unchecked, you will become unwell. And the reason why I'm saying that is everybody has wellness issues with even their physical being, in that if we don't do something to maintain our natural health, it's going to decline.
Correct.
And mental health is not different from that, in that there are things you have to do, like, and I'm gonna dirty do you, but like, what if a person didn't sleep? They're gonna have a serious mental health issue.
Yes.
If a person doesn't eat, it's gonna begin to affect the mind. If you don't drink water or you become dehydrated, you can become in a position to where it impacts your mind. So there are some things that has to be done to maintain mental health, which includes sleeping, and ways where you deal with your stress in a healthy way on an ongoing basis. And that's people that you say are well. And so then there are people with challenges that they need some special care, but everybody has to be concerned about mental health. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think as with all of us, we all have our physical health. We all have mental health. It's just a matter of where are we in taking care of that.
Yeah.
Is it a well balanced? Are we physically healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually healthy? Mm-hmm. So I think it has the ability to impact us negatively if we don't focus on all those aspects of our lives.
Yes. So what are some of the things that you've had the privilege of, some scenarios of people with mental health challenges? Where have you been able to come in and help people with some challenges? And can you give us some scenarios of help that you have to kind of help to navigate through and provide help for people?
Sure. I've worked with people who've presented with pretty severe depression symptoms. Mm-hmm. I've worked with a lot of people who have had either suicidal thoughts or actually attempted suicide. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that I've worked with have experienced some complex trauma.
Okay, so let me back up just a little bit.
Okay.
Are you just a sister at the church, or do you have some do you have some training, or you just a sister at the church, or
you know what?
Where you come from?
I'm okay with just being a sister at the church, But I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Georgia. I've worked in outpatient community settings. I've worked in inpatient psychiatric hospitals. I currently work in the school setting. So I've come in contact with people in various settings and different environments who presented with some pretty severe mental health challenges.
And so, so how have you been able to give us a scenario of help that you?
I had one person that I was working with who I think just some really bad things had happened to them. And because they didn't know how to handle these things that had happened, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, and just feeling like no one understood and feeling like it had only happened to them and they didn't understand why these things had happened to them at the hands of their own family members. Their way out was to commit suicide. And I remember them begging me, just if you would just please leave the room so I could kill myself. That was their solution to all the things that had happened and all the things that had impacted their mental health had just led them to believe that, it's not fixable. And for me to feel better means I shouldn't be here or I don't want to be here any longer. So just working with that individual through a lot of therapy, through a lot of processing those things that happened to that individual, helping that individual not focus on finding an apology or waiting on apologies from people who had hurt them, but just understanding that it happened, acknowledging that it happened, validating that it happened, that is not right, and just expressing, I am sorry that these things happen to you, but there is life beyond that. There is hope beyond that. But I think when people become hopeless, that's when their mental health is probably near its lowest.
I see. So one of the things that has become a challenge to our mental health is one of the things that we need to feed into our mental health is hope. Because a lot of times the past can't be undone.
Correct.
But you have to see something beyond what happened. Because what happened is history. And you can't change history, But what can happen from today going forward can be different. Right. And so you kind of have to help people to see that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because at times they have the blinders on and all they can think about is what happened.
Right. Right. And if you don't know how to process all of these things that have happened to you, if you don't know what to do with all these thoughts and emotions and all these feelings that can flood your mind, then you can find yourself in a very dark place where without help and without God, it is nearly impossible to see that hope and to see that tomorrow. And all we're doing is taking it one step at a time. But when it seems like just taking one step is too much, or when it seems like, well, if I wake up tomorrow, I don't want to feel like this. So it would be easier to not wake up tomorrow. When you're in that type of darkness or in that type of space, it is very hard to focus on hope. It is very hard to accept or believe that hope is.
Yes. And so in your profession, I understand that you use clinical terms and clinical things. Does your faith play a role in how you help others?
Definitely.
I can understand that there may be some limitations as to how much you can share the faith that you have with others, but it plays a role in how you
Right,
Yes.
right. It definitely does. If someone asks about my faith, I don't mind sharing it, but I don't impose it on other
Yes.
people. But I do use it and rely on it 100% in the work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I pray for the people that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
because there are times and have been times where I don't know what to say or I don't know what to do. And each case presents differently. And people respond differently. So how do I reach this person that is in this darkness? Because I don't believe that I alone can help them. I believe that through my faith and through God, He is who allows me to help them. So I don't glory in it or take the credit for it. Hopefully someone has been helped by interacting with me through along the way, but not because of me, but because of God.
Yes.
And so in the work that I do, I also use my faith as my outlet to protect my own mental health.
Yes.
Because seeing what I see and hearing what I hear, it is very easy to lose hope if you don't have your own. It is very easy to see the world through their lens.
Yes.
And if you don't have anything to battle that or to combat that or come back from after this session, okay, let me go in here. How do I process everything? How do I not take it home? And how do I not become burdened with those thoughts and those emotions?
Right, right. Because you've got to be whole.
Right.
And when you leave work and come back home, I think your husband is looking for a whole wife to come back home. not a broken wife,
Right,
and
right.
in tears and shambles and in pieces, and I think Kaylee and Caleb, which are your children,
Right.
they're looking for a whole mom.
Right. They expect. That's the bare expectation.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
right.
yes, and I can share with in that burden with you, in that you counsel with people, you talk with people, and you begin to take on their burdens. But then you've got to process those things and release those things so you don't carry that every day. Because if you begin to carry that, like if you carry yesterday's burdens today, then how much room do you have to carry today's burden?
Right.
Because there's going to be some challenges from today. Every day has its own challenges. And so we've got to do some things to decompress. And this is not just you in your profession or me in being a pastor or a counselor or what have you. This is everybody. Everyone needs a time where they can process today and release, especially the negative things.
Right.
But the positive things, you might want to hold on to that because you might need that tomorrow.
Right.
But the negative stuff, just carrying that forward every day, I don't know how you can really make it like that.
Right. Right.
Right.
I agree. I think life brings stressors and situations that everybody is going to face, even our young kids. Like they are encountering things that we didn't encounter at such a young age. So they have stressors and things that we didn't have to deal with at their ages. So I think it's important for even them to have an outlet. Even them, schools are very challenging academically. So even for our teenagers and young adults who are in college, like how are they dealing with just normal everyday stress?
Yes.
Because you can condition yourself to just be in a stressful state, and that's not healthy living.
No.
To always be stressed. And what happens when the next stressor comes, the next trial comes, and you're still holding on to that stress from yesterday, that stress from last year, the rest of the stress that's coming the rest of the week, without having an outlet or something to connect to that you can release all of that into.
Yeah. So what is a way that you would suggest people de-stress?
I think for me sometimes it's the music that I listen to that helps bring me back to where my hope is, where my joy lies in finding that's, and I have songs for a season. It depends on the song that I'm in. And that song may be on repeat day in, day in, but it's helping me get through this. It's speaking to this season. It's speaking to this storm, this stressor right here, right now. I think having just a prayer life that is for me, it is something that I cannot live without. Not being able to talk to and communicate and just meditate on God, just reading the scriptures. Sometimes I'm just amazed, like, wow, this scripture is exactly what I'm going through. Like, this was written thousands of years ago, and it is speaking to my right now, my today. Exercise, just getting out, if you can, stepping outside of those stressors are different ways. Connecting yourself with other people who are positive to your life, not necessarily people that you like, people who have a positive impact on your life and who can speak to those things. I think for me, also having people who have walked this path before me. So not just having a circle of friends who are my age, who are going through what I'm going through, but having some people who've lived it, who know.
Who more advanced.
Right, who can show me, like, I've weathered that storm. And I've been there in your shoes, but I'm still standing. So I think having all of those different connections, eating right, getting enough sleep. Because I know for me, when I get stressed, I don't want to eat. But you've got to, press through that. Like, well, then I'm going to have another problem or other problems. If I don't eat.
If you don't eat, right. I was at the hospital a few weeks ago, and one of the sisters was so thin and didn't want to eat and was having trouble, and food didn't taste good. I told her, I said, well, I tell you what, you're going to have to eat this food anyway. You're just going to have to decide to eat this food because you need to eat the food. The food don't taste good, but eat it for your health. Just eat it because you need to live and you need strength. And another one I appreciate that you said about the exercise. I was in a bad place at one time myself, whereas I was under a lot of pressure. I had moved to Tennessee. I had my family. I had very few membership. And so I'm trying to build the church and work with my family, work a full-time job, and I was in school full-time. I was in it came a day, it got overbearing. It really did. But one of the things I would do is I would exercise. I would take a little time, probably most days, and go for a run. And some people say, well, I don't see how you make time for that. And what I came to a position of, I don't know how I could not do it, because I needed that to kind of get clarity of thought. It wasn't about losing weight. It was about, I need to get my mind together. And it was an escape from all of that. And it brought clarity and oxygen to my brain. and after that, I would be inspired and I would have clarity of thought. And then there did come a day to where I got overwhelmed, and I called my pastor. I called Bishop Jeffries, and actually, I'm gonna be honest with you, I wanted to release my pressures and my concerns to him. And honestly, I wanted him to tell me, son, you don't have to do all that. I just wanted him to release me from it all and just tell me, just say, you don't have to do that. But what he did was, and I appreciate that, is he helped me to process what I was going through. He started asking me questions. He said, well, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And he made me, so I was just overwhelmed. And sometimes, I guess, when you get overwhelmed, you come to a point to where you stop rational thinking and rational thought. But that's what he brought me to. He brought me back down to being rational. Okay, how you doing this? How you doing that? And he just asked me a series of questions. And when I got through talking with him, I was like, yeah. I felt better. And then I felt like I can do it, but I need to do it differently. I was doing it wrong. And I had to change my way of doing it. And what do you think about it?
I think that is essentially what therapy is. And I think some people are afraid of or anti-therapy, but it's simply a means of processing and looking at it through a different lens. Like if you have dealt with this issue and you've gotten the same result, or you've seen no movement, okay, now let's look at it through a different lens. Let's get some other tools to see how we can approach whatever you've been through, whatever you're going through, or whatever you may face. And it's just a way of processing through all the different hats you wear, all the different things you got going on, because you still got to live, you still have a family, you still had a church, and while you could have maybe, done away with some other things, I think that if those things are going to benefit you in the long run, how do you get all of them accomplished? And so I think having someone to process with, whether that's your pastor, whether that's your therapist, whether that's a mentor, I think just having someone who can see it through a different lens, help to bring you back to a baseline that where your mind is so overwhelmed, it's not seeing all the ways you can make it happen, or all the different avenues that you can take to reach the same goal.
Yes, which brings me to a popular scripture that we think about from time to time in Proverbs 3:5. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not to thine own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path." I would also say that everybody needs to talk to somebody sometimes. It's just not too long ago, this week actually, not too long ago, I just had a bad feeling. I just had a bad feeling. I just felt bad. And I got home, and it was actually after a Bible study. And the Bible study, I think, went well, but I was just feeling a certain type of way. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call somebody. And that's what I did. I called somebody, and I just wanted to talk to somebody. I didn't feel hopeless, but I just had this feeling. And I said, you know what? I need to talk to somebody. I just need to talk. And I called one of the other pastors, and I didn't get him. I said, all right, I know what I'm going to do. I just called Bishop. I said, I'm going to call him again. So I just called him. I didn't tell him I was feeling bad or anything. We just got to talking. And we just talked, and I felt better. I just felt better. I needed somebody to talk to. And then after we talked, then the other pastor called me, and we talked a little further. And the thing is, everybody needs somebody that they can talk to at times. Right. And I think that sometimes people suffer because they don't talk to anybody, and they just try to internalize it all. And I don't believe God wants us to be like that. No. In fact, I believe that that's why we should have fellowship, because we're able to, through fellowship, edify one another and build up one another. What do you think of that?
I agree with that. I think that that's how you feed your own strength, is when you get with other people who can help build you up, because we all get drained. We all are pouring from our own cups. It's like, well, how are you filling your cup back up? Because once your cup is empty, we're in that place where you just internalize everything. You don't have anything else to give, but it's not that people will stop asking or needing you. Yes. They will drain you if you allow it. So whether it's, through fellowship and through your own connection with God, how are you building yourself back up? How are you feeding your mental health so that when we all get here, I think that's when our services are super powerful. When we're all taking care of ourselves, then we get here and our connection, then it's like a fire and then we all leave feeling even better than we came. We all leave feeling edified because we're all, doing our part. No one's over here being drained, or I'm just going to come and get everything my pastor has. I'm going to let him go home empty just so that he can build me up. And it's like, well, what did you put into the fellowship? What did you bring? And if you're not well over an amount of time, you're not going to be able to help build up. So I think, there may be times, maybe days where you're not your best, where you do need to pull from the group, or you may need someone to pour into you. But I think through our connections and through our design that God has made us creatures of connection, that we are supposed to feed into other people. And that takes you being a whole well-being to be able to pour into motherhood, parenthood, into your spouse, into anything that you have going on.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you know, it is funny. Sometimes I come to the service, and then I look out over the congregation, and I look out and I see, Lord, these people are going through something. I need to build them up some. I say, Lord, put a praise in their heart. Give them some encouragement.
Right,
and
right.
so, yes, and that's part of my responsibility. You know, is to edify, to edify. But you did say a good thing in that it is good to come to the house of God with some offering. Come with an offering to be able to share something that you have with the rest of the people of God. But it is important for us to be well. And if we're not well, we won't have that thing to be able to share or to pour into others. We are to, part of our responsibility is to provoke and unto love and to good works. But if I'm down and I'm depressed and I don't have good mental health, it's going to be hard for me to provoke you to be well.
Right.
When I'm not well.
Right. Right, I definitely agree. I think that for some people, the challenge is not being aware of when you're not well.
I see.
And I think sometimes that takes having your village sometimes to be able to recognize and be able to speak to you and honestly and have an honest conversation when they notice, you know, that you may not be well. And it also takes a willingness on our parts to accept. Sometimes we may need a little help. We may need to go talk to someone. We may need to make a phone call and see someone when we're not well. I think sometimes it's also a matter of, you know, dysfunction is your normal.
Yeah, so you think you're okay
Right,
because you're
right,
normal
right,
according to your standard, but that normality, or however you say that, is not, is
Right.
somewhat abnormal according
Exactly.
to a baseline of
Right.
wellness.
Right. So I think you have different scenarios or different ways that people find themselves in different situations, but at the end of the day, it is all about us being well, or at least being knowledgeable about mental health. Like a lot of people know, you know, what a healthy cholesterol level is, or according to what your doctors say, a healthy blood pressure is, but I don't know that a lot of people know like the signs of mental health concerns.
Yes.
Within their, you know, families or within our community, or, you know, that's
Or
just
within themselves.
Correct.
Like you're angry
Correct.
today, tomorrow, and then the day after that, you continue to be angry and you continue to have this angry spirit. Well, that might be okay for a day. But as it progresses and you continue to be angry day after day, then you've got something that you need to deal with.
Right.
You're bitter. You have bitterness in you. You have this heart of how do I say it, where you have this bitterness in you and this unkind spirit in you, and you're snapping at people, you respond to people in bad and negative ways. That's probably not everybody else.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying? Because sometimes we'll dispel that to all them people at work.
Right.
Then we say them people at the house. Then we say them people at the church. Oh, them people on the highway. You know, them people at McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and wherever else you go, and Walmart, wherever else you go. All them people.
Right.
Really, it's all them people.
Right.
And it's nothing about you.
Right. The common denominator.
Yes.
In all those situations.
But it's everybody else.
Right.
But it's not you.
Right.
It's all them people. You know. And I think that, in fact, to really be well, you would a well person can deal with an unwell person and not allow their unwellness to affect them.
Right.
Do you
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. One, just working in mental health, you see a lot. You come in contact with a lot, and a lot of it is there's no preparation for it. There's no, oh, I didn't know it was going to go like that, or I didn't expect them to say all that, or share all that, or for these circumstances to be how they are. So for people who serve in mental health, we have to be well. And then when you look at families, or you recognize you're in this situation, or that you're in this setting with this person, but they still have a life outside of here. So your mental health impacts your children. It impacts your loved ones. How do they respond to you? How do children who have, let's say, a parent who is struggling with mental health, well, you could, in certain situations, teach them generationally that that's the norm. Where it's like, no, that's not how you're supposed to grow up in a house with an angry parent or person who explodes over very little things. So I think that paying attention to your mental health, getting help for your mental health, the earlier on the intervention, the better. But that's the same with physical health. I think then we can work on being a whole person, because a lot of times mental health can have a direct impact on your physical health.
Yes.
So when you are angry and stressed and bitter, a lot of times that can have a direct correlation on blood pressure, how you eat, when you eat, what you eat. So I think that just paying attention to not just, like, let's say you went to the doctor and you do have a high blood pressure concern, but do you mention to them how angry you are? Do we bring those things up, or are we ashamed to really be open and honest about what is going on with us, or do we just want to hide it away and just carry that bitterness, that anger, that depression, whatever it is? Are we just content with, oh, it'll be okay? Most of the time they get worse without treatment.
Without treatment.
Or without some form of help.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing. Sometimes we never deal with root causes. We just begin to deal with symptoms. So yes, I'm eating because it makes me feel better. And what I'm eating is the wrong thing. And so now I'm stressed. I'm doing stress eating, and my blood pressure is high, and now I got diabetes, which sometimes people have it, but they don't have to keep it.
Right.
They if they would get to the root of why they're doing what they're doing, to abate their stress and abate. If you could get to the root of that stress and stop letting your stressors stress you, because that's another thing. Is sometimes, and you can speak to this, as I was speaking with somebody about this, sometimes you can't change your stressor, but you can change how you allow your stressor to impact you. You can't change other people and how they're going to deal with you, and you can't change your environment sometimes, but you can change your mind as to how you're going to allow that to impact you and what you're going to do about it. So if you can get to those root causes, then perhaps you can deal with all of the other things in a more healthy way, like food, like and maybe you don't need the blood pressure medicine. Maybe you don't need to be on the. Maybe you're not a real. What do you say? A genetically disposed diabetic. Maybe it's your behavior that's leading you to some of those other illnesses, and it's how you're dealing with your stress. And your stressors that you may not be able to change.
Right, I agree. I think a lot of people carry around hurt that they don't resolve for years. And I think that when you push away those things and, oh, if I don't think about them, it's okay, but you don't see how it's still affecting you. It's one thing that I tell people that I'm working with, you can deal with your problems or they can deal with you. But however, it will come to a head at some point. So to be proactive about that, to deal with that. And it's very hard and it's very scary to think about those things that we pushed in our past or pushed away in our minds. They're still there. And so I would be remiss to say, it's easy to talk about. It's not. It's hard to, and building that trust with someone to be able to share and release those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions, whatever they may be, whatever caused hurt, pain, and unforgiveness, but not dealing with them is where I feel like we run into issues, not getting to the root cause, because like you said, you're just masking it with tape. But what happens when the tape falls off? What happens when you can't pretend anymore? Because I think that's what a lot of people do. We just pretend that we're healthy. We pretend that we got it all together, right?
I'm okay. And even sometimes you ask people and you can physically see. I can look in a person's eyes at times and I know
they're not okay.
You're not well.
They're not okay.
You're not well. They say, how you doing? I'm fine. And you just know they want to be fine, and they just kind of just I'm okay, I'm okay, and they're just saying that because they want you to think that they're okay, and they don't want to tell you what they're really going through.
And I think for some people, it's finding the right person or the right medium to share whatever it is. Because I think sometimes it may be a conversation you may not want to have with your pastor. If we're talking about, sexual abuse or something, maybe I don't want to talk to my pastor about that. Maybe that's a conversation I'd rather have with someone that I won't see in my daily life, where I can go and share that and I can walk out and I don't have to deal with that until I come back with them to deal with that. Or, a trusted person in your life. But I definitely think having a medium, having something, because you can read some people. Some people are really good at covering it up, so it's harder. Like some people have surprised me, like, wow, I had no idea, and I'm very honest, and I didn't know all that was going on with you. Thank you for sharing it with me, but when I make recommendations, like maybe you should see someone, maybe you should talk to someone, taking that first step can be very hard. But I think having a community that helps support that, that helps support the idea that your mental health is just as important as every other part of your life.
Yes,
it's there. That's how we were created. Your mental health is there. I think just having access to people, and I think you're very accessible, but one, having access to people, two, just having knowledge. I think some people don't know. Like, who do I talk to? How do I talk to? Like, I know about it, but, I went to school for it. It's the field that I work in. But is it a wealth of knowledge out there? No, because I meet people every day that, oh, I didn't know there was someone like you here, or okay, what do I do? And for some people, it comes out of a crisis situation where, someone passes unexpectedly, and sometimes I go in as part of a crisis team and, talk to people about what resources are available, and it's usually like, oh, I didn't know, or, where do I start? That sometimes it's just a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge about your mental health and what to do about it once you acknowledge that maybe your mental health isn't in the best of sorts, and sometimes it's not because anything is going on. Some people just do it for a maintenance kind of thing. Like, you go and get your physicals every year. Hopefully they come out well, but you do just go get a checkup. So I think checking in with someone, connecting with someone, just to make sure that you're good.
Yes.
Like, is this, this where I am right now? This is what I'm thinking.
This is what I'm thinking.
Right.
What do you think about that? And get some
Right.
feedback.
You need someone who will be
and be honest with you.
Exactly. Yes. Honest and objectional. Don't go along with it just because I'm saying it. If it's a crazy idea, let me know. Like, before you jump off the ship, and that might allow you to sink if you go with that, or maybe that relationship isn't the healthiest for you. I think that's a big thing. Like, people don't necessarily see a lot of times unhealthy relationships, whatever they may be. And some relationships we're tied to, we're connected to. Can't do anything about those, but how do you change the dynamics so that they're not toxic, or they're not draining to one party, so that they become balanced and healthy relationships for the sake of your own mental health.
Exactly, which sometimes may mean, well, you can't control another person. So I think that always should be taken off the table. Just don't think that you're going to control that other person.
Right.
And I think that's sometimes people's stress is that they want
Yes.
that person to do
Yes.
this, X, Y, and Z, and be this or that or another. And see, now you got an expectation that's,
Right.
and so you need to manage your expectation
Right.
as to what you actually have control over.
Right.
Now you can have an impact on a person, but a lot of that's going to be your own behavior.
Right. Focusing on you.
Yes.
It's a self journey.
Yes.
Yes.
Because you can't make that person be that other person or
Right.
do this thing or,
Right.
you know, it's a lot of the changes got to be within you
Right.
and what you do, and also how you process whatever they do.
Right.
Whatever they do.
Because focusing on someone else that intensely about, wanting to change them doesn't allow you the time to focus on yourself and
Right.
being your best self. People will be who they want to be. People will do what they want to do.
Right.
So when you decide, okay, I'm going to focus on me.
Yes.
And what I need to do. And like you said, hopefully it will have a positive impact on that other person, but I can't become consumed.
Yes.
With whether they do or do not, whether they say or
Right.
don't say. But I feel like sometimes that's another warning sign about your own mental health when you are consumed or fixated on what the other person isn't doing or what they are doing
Or what they did.
Right. Right. If you can just focus on yourself, not that it will be easy, not that it won't hurt, but just focusing more on yourself sometimes can help you in your own mental health, in your own mental space. And like you said, you then begin to react differently. Whether their behavior changes or not, your outlook on what they do changes, your responses changes. You can see your stress level go down because it is not about them anymore. It is about me and my own peace. And my own mental health.
Right.
Because, like you said, on no day, we're even trying to teach our kids that you can't control what they do. You can't even. You shouldn't even be worried about it. To that on a kid level, like, oh, they weren't nice to me. Okay, we can't focus on. Everybody's not going to be nice. Okay?
Yeah, everybody's not going to be nice. Yeah.
That is where we are. Everybody's not going to be nice. Okay, learn that now. That there are some mean people. That life comes with hurt and challenges.
Right.
And with God and with a more stable or positive outlook on your own mental health, it makes facing those things so much easier.
Yes. In fact, you can actually come to a position to where when evil takes place upon you, you don't allow that evil to overcome you.
Right.
You actually overcome the evil with good. And it's been a journey for me. So I came from a bad place myself. And I believe God healed my mind. When I came to him and surrendered myself to him, he began to do a work in my life. And a big part of my life is my mind and how I think. And so I don't think about things the way I used to. I've been greatly disrespected before in front of a large group of people. And what I did was I didn't go there with that person. And the reason why I bring that up is to say that you can come to a position to where you don't allow people to take you to bad places.
Right.
You can come to a position to where you don't allow them to take you to bad places.
Right.
Where you don't allow people to have rule and control over you. Because ultimately, if a person disrespects you, and then you in turn can't help but to disrespect them back, then they have impacted you in such a way that you become just like them.
Right. You've allowed them to control your emotions.
You did that.
Right.
It's actually in your control to allow them to do what they do.
Right.
And then you do what is right.
Right. And like you said, that comes through growth.
Yes.
That definitely comes through having some outlet to process that through. Because a lot of times our first reaction is to match you for what you brought it.
Bring it then. All right.
Especially in our early days.
Yeah, so you don't know me. You got the wrong one now.
We grew up hearing, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, you did. You let them have a part of you. You let them take control over you, and that can be a very dangerous a way to live, or a way to have your mental health under someone else's control.
Yes.
That they dictate how you respond. They dictate how you are left feeling. Because I know, for me, after those type of interactions, I didn't feel great about myself. And you're walking around, oh, I told them. It's like, great, now I got to go apologize and get that right. I got to go fix that because I did that, or I allowed myself to be pulled in. So I know in working with people, I'm like, our goal is not to match people. I try not to let people pull me into where their energy level, I match this. I'm not trying to match. They're at a 10, let me go to a 10. No, I'm going to stay at my baseline so that I protect my own mental health. They can stay at a 10. That's not going to work out very well for very long. So I definitely agree. That it's a journey, but it's one that should begin. The earlier, the better.
Right.
So that, you don't find yourself in your seniorhood,
yes.
Learning about mental health or learning how to have a healthy mental health.
Yes, yes. And ultimately, your health impacts the people around you. And if you want a healthy relationship with anybody else, you need to start with the one with yourself.
Right.
And ultimately, and with God. And because here's the thing, you need to be whole.
Correct.
And some people today are just not whole.
Right.
They're just not whole. And even talk about marriage and kids and things of that nature. The Lord didn't say two halves will be one. He said two shall become one flesh, not two halves.
Right.
But people need to be whole before they get married.
Right.
And so they need to learn how to process things and be healthy by themselves, them and God, and then join in with another and begin to produce offspring. Because that husband or that wife and then them children, they're going to challenge your mental health. So you need to start well. You need to be well before you start. And have something to pour into the relationship and not necessarily be always the one who needs to be taken. Right.
I agree. I think if that's how the world worked, I think we would have a very different society. I don't know why people don't focus on their mental health, or why it's put on the back burner. I know our lives are busy, and we've got a million other things, so to speak, that are going on. But I think that to live the life that God really designed for us, really planned for us, I don't know how you do that without working on your mental health, checking in, doing check-ins, making sure you're good, because some things hit hard, some things take a lot out of you, and I don't think for any of us that we know how we'll necessarily respond altogether, or how situations will emotionally drain us until we're in those shoes and in those situations. So I think going into it in a better mental state, a better physical state, helps us to rebound from when we have to pour it back into our children, our spouses, or whoever we may encounter, and then always coming back to yourself. Am I okay? Am I okay? Because I cannot help you if I'm not okay. I can't be there for you if I'm not okay.
Yeah. And so when you feel drained, say, well, okay, I'm going to take this day. And I'm going to read. I'm going to pray. I'm going to eat. I'm going to rest. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do some things that's going to build me up. And so I say that we need to talk again. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I don't feel like we've exhausted it. Because there are some other components to this that we can get to. This is very important, I believe, for the people of God and people in general. We are having some things in our society that's happening because there are some of us who are not well. And we are praying that we prosper, be in health as our soul prospers. And that's what we want for all of our subscribers and the people who are viewing this podcast and those that are associated with us and the people that we're in communion with and people in our communities and people we go to school with and work with and they're all around us. We want our communities to be well. So thank you. Thank you. And may the Lord bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Until next time.